Hello, I'm Dr. Kelvin, and in this video we're going to learn how to reduce swelling in the legs, ankles and feet. A very simple test to know if you have swelling is to press with your finger on the area you think might be swollen. And if a mark remains, the test is positive and you will definitely need the tips in this video. But let's get to it. What is edema? A lot of people confuse edema with a bruise. They are similar words, but they represent different clinical signs. A bruise, for example, is when the skin turns purple because of a blow. Now, when for some other reason a part of the body becomes swollen, increases in size, that's what we call edema. Edema can be caused not only by vascular problems, but also by issues with the kidneys, liver, and heart. Maybe you have edema because you're consuming too much sodium, but that's not always the case. There's another, even more common factor that's causing a lot of people to experience swelling. I'm going to explain this to you today because it's something that's relatively easy to solve. And when you apply what I'm about to show you, you'll probably be able to resolve this swelling. When you have swelling, edema, fluid retention, especially in your legs, ankles and feet, this could indicate a problem in a structure that's present in our cells. And the purpose of these tiny structures is to maintain the right amount of fluid inside and outside the cells, as well as the right amount of sodium both inside and outside the cells. We call these tiny structures the sodium-potassium pump. Look, pay attention to the name. Pump of what? Of sodium and potassium. You'll notice that this structure is related to these minerals that we consume, which are sodium and potassium, and therefore sodium and potassium are also related to your swelling. If this sodium-potassium pump stops working, if you're experiencing swelling, you're probably dealing with a malfunction in this pump. What happens is that sodium accumulates outside the cells and the cell becomes dehydrated. This results in fluid retention. Another factor that leads to swelling, to edema, is sugar consumption. If you're consuming a lot of sugar, you might not even realize how much sugar you're actually consuming. What will happen is that a side effect of all this is also an increase in swelling. When blood sugar is very high, there's a process where this sugar, which is abundant in the bloodstream, binds to a protein in the blood cells. We call this protein hemoglobin. This process of sugar plus hemoglobin is called glycation. Take a look at this example. Here I have a protein bar. I'm going to hide the brand, no one's sponsoring me. This bar here represents the protein in your blood, hemoglobin. And here I have a marshmallow, and this marshmallow represents the sugar in your blood. If you have a lot of marshmallows, a lot of sugar in your blood, this sugar binds to that protein. And that's when glycation happens. So this protein that's stuck to the sugar, we say it's a protein that's now damaged. These cells have a lifespan of 3 months. In other words, if you consume a lot of sugar during a certain period, that sugar binds to some of these cells, and for 3 months you'll have these damaged cells in your body, resulting in pain, swelling, and inflammation. And the more sugar you eat, the more this sugar binds to your proteins, resulting in more swelling, more pain, and more inflammation. But look, you don't have to be so radical as to cut sugar out of your diet all at once. First, try to reduce it. Instead of eating, for example, 3 marshmallows, just have 1. How tasty. I'm going to save this one for tomorrow. Tasty, right? When you eat too much sugar, it also destroys and causes micro-injuries inside your arteries and your blood vessels, causing fluid to leak out of the cells, increasing swelling. See how this turns into a snowball effect. On top of that, excess sugar makes your body retain even more sodium and causes potassium to get trapped with that sugar as well. Wherever sodium goes, water follows. We call this process osmosis. That's why when we season a salad with salt, the salt draws the water out of the salad. Over time, all of this affects the nerves in your legs and feet, causing pain, tingling, and numbness. We call this process peripheral neuropathy. This is very common in diabetics, that is, people who have a pathological buildup of sugar in the blood. But it can also happen to people who don't have diabetes, to those with prediabetes, because of this buildup of sugar in the blood. So be very careful with all of this. Now here's the thing. There is a vitamin you can take that will help reduce swelling in your legs, ankles, and feet. I'll talk about it later on. Stay until the end of the video and pay attention. Besides this vitamin, there are 2 very important minerals that you need to pay attention to and consume to help reduce your swelling. I'm talking about potassium and magnesium. When we talk about increasing potassium intake in our diet, we think of a fruit, we think of bananas. But look at this. A banana has approximately 300 milligrams of potassium per banana, and we need 4,700 milligrams of potassium daily in our diet. So for us to reach that just by eating bananas, we'd have to eat 15 bananas a day. And just look at how much sugar there is in 15 bananas. In other words, we solve one problem and make another worse. because we increase the sugar in our bloodstream. There's no way. But there are even more abundant sources of potassium that you can include in your diet, for example. Avocado has much more potassium than bananas, as well as salads and berries. And by consuming all of these, you'll increase your potassium available in your body, which will also help with the swelling issue. Magnesium, on the other hand, is necessary to produce ATP, which is the energy currency of our body. And a deficiency of this mineral can not only cause swelling, but also cramps and fatigue throughout the body. Foods like pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, and green vegetables are good sources of magnesium. You can also get these minerals through a good electrolyte supplement, of course, as long as it doesn't have hidden sugar in its ingredients. Now let's talk about vitamins. Studies show that another reason for the malfunction of sodium and potassium pumps is a deficiency of vitamin B1. For this pump to work in your cells, reducing swelling, it requires the presence of vitamin B1. And the main cause of vitamin B1 deficiency is the excessive consumption of sugars and refined carbohydrates. In addition, vitamin B1 is also an antioxidant, helping to protect your nerves. And when you have a vitamin B1 deficiency, you can also develop peripheral neuropathy, which is that numbness, pain, and tingling in the nerves of your legs and feet. Vitamin B1 is mainly found in red meats, beef liver, and it is essential for carbohydrate metabolism, protecting the body against excess sugar. Therefore, this vitamin also prevents sugar from binding to the proteins in blood cells, that process called glycation, preserving blood circulation and also reducing your swelling. The moral of the story is that consuming magnesium, potassium, and vitamin B1 is a very effective solution for improving swelling, edema in the legs, ankles, and feet. But in addition to consuming these components, you also need to reduce sodium and sugar in your diet. Otherwise, you will always experience swelling when you consume carbohydrates. Refined and sodium, mainly found in these ultra-processed foods, such as ham, salami, sausage, snacks, frozen foods, lasagna, and ready-made sauces. So, you should avoid all of these. Another very interesting component to reduce swelling is to do exercises that work your calves. The calf is considered our second heart. It acts as a hydraulic pump that, when it contracts during exercise, helps push the blood upward, making the blood flow back up to the heart. With that in mind, I prepared a video with the 10 best exercises to improve circulation. These are simple, easy, and safe exercises that you can do at home. And they are the same exercises I prescribe to my patients who have circulation problems in my office. To access these exercises, just click on this little box here and I'll see you there.